Hi, everybody. Just a reminder, this is uh, a session for mostly for the ones who are just starting development. And if you have already done React development, a lot of these tools you might already be aware about. So that's okay. Like you can always like out of 10 tools, you might already know 7, 8, and there might be 2 or 3 tools that you would have never tried out or never heard about. So it might still be useful to you. So let's take a look at this. So what happened was when I interacted with a lot of front-end developers, both who are just entering into the field of development or even much experienced developers, I figured out that they don't a lot of times they don't use the right tool for the purpose. So I thought, let's probably create a good list of tools that might be a good reference point for somebody. And also, when I talked to a lot of experienced developers, I got to know about few of the tools that I had never used before. So I thought, why not explore these kind of tools and see. And when I explored those, that really helped me quite a bit. So here is the list, and we'll take a look. If you can't really follow along, because the list is quite long and we are going to talk quickly about a few of those, I'm going to do a demo also of 2 of the tools. But let's say, just in case if you can't follow along, I'll share the PPT also in one of my tweets later. So yeah, my name is Souvik Basu. I'm a JavaScript enthusiast. I love everything about JavaScript. And I'm a freelance front-end developer. I've been coding since a while now, and especially on the React side, I've been working on for the last 5 years. In fact, like my day job is in Angular today, and most of my fun projects they are in React, which I work on in my free time at night. And there is a site that we developed called Frontend Social, which is a social platform for developers and designers. While we were creating those, we thought, let's do it using Vue.js, so that I get to kind of work on all the 3 flavors of framework. So we are going to talk about tools mostly from the perspective of productivity. So just a minute. So, like for example, there will be a lot of tools which are used for improving the network performance or the UI rendering performance and all. We are not really interested in those kind of tools today. We are looking at the tools that can help you as a developer or a designer to do your work faster. So, what exactly is productivity? A productivity means you should be able to do things uh, in much lesser time, so you get more time in your hand, you get more energy at your disposal, and you get to do more work done in by spending lesser resources. And how do you achieve productivity? There will be a lot of software tools, a lot of hardware tools, and there is a lot of holistic approach also that sometimes you have to take into consideration if you want to really improve your efficiency as a developer. Now, when we look at a development life cycle, there are different stages of a development life cycle, right? Like it starts with prototyping a product. So initially, you might have very rough idea about how you want to, what kind of product you want to have, what kind of pages it will have. So you just create a prototype. You don't really create detailed design. Generally, we just use pen and paper for prototyping, but there might be some good tools for prototyping as well. Then the next stage is about design, where you do a detailed design of your product. Then there is the actual code implementation. Then while you are doing your code implementation, you might need certain tools to debug your application, then certain tools to help you with testing your application, and certain ecosystem to build your application and deploy it. And when your release cycles are over, you would want to release the product to production. And it doesn't stop there. Like even after release, you might need to have some support for your customers, so that if they have any kind of issues, if they have any kind of feedback for your product, you should be able to receive those. So you need to have the right tools to receive feedbacks from them. And then with the feedback cycle, you probably again go to the next cycle of design code, build, and release again. So this is kind of a typical development life cycle that we have. So let's start looking at tools that can help us in each of these places. Now, for prototyping, this is probably the most obvious thing. Like, whenever we want to start developing any mobile application or web page or web application, the first thing we do is we just take a piece of paper and a pencil and we start drawing the pages and just try to brainstorm about, how do we want our application to look like. So that's probably the best tool, in fact, because that gets the job done really fast. So it's not really necessary that you always have to use some kind of a software tool to get your work done. In fact, when I create a lot of web pages, when I have to interact with some other developers, a lot of times I just create something in MS Paint, like some kind of a paint tool to quickly create some kind of a prototype and give it to them. If you really want to create some serious designs and capture some ideas while you're prototyping, for React specifically, there is a tool called React Proto that you can take a look at. And there is another one which is even better called Mural. Like Mural even supports collaboration between team members. So you can actually design or do not really design, like create a prototype of your application collaboratively online. Then is the design phase. So a lot of us, especially if we are a freelancer or if a lot of times you have a tendency of trying to do the design ourselves. I have myself got into this trap a lot of times. Even simple things like designing the logo of your product, we have a tendency to feel that, okay, why spend money on creating logo? Let's do it ourselves. If you do that, you'll probably end up doing a logo like this. uh, this has been one learning for me, where I figured out that it's probably not the right idea to do the design by yourselves and give it to somebody who's actually a professional designer, because they'll probably do the same thing in a much lesser cost then and in a much lesser time. Because when you look at the time that you're spending yourself, they can actually do it in a much lesser time, and it will definitely have a professional look. So this is just a design tip that always go for a professional designer. Also, another decision to make here is that whenever we have to create any web page, let's say if I need any kind of a control, let's say if I need a date picker or if I need a customized list box, our tendency is always to see if we can make it by ourselves. Because as developers, it is always kind of our tendency that we want to be in control of the components or the libraries that we want to use. Like the thing that comes to our mind is that what if I want some kind of a customization tomorrow? If I just pick up something off the shelf, it may not really work. But that's not really the case. Like 95%, you can say, probably, of the things that you would need in your application, people would have already thought about it. And it's quite possible that the libraries which already exist in the market, they cater to your needs. In fact, another good thing of using a well-tested industry product is that, like, first of all, there is a team of developers who are working on it, not an individual. And if it is open source, it is even better, because then it has gone through rigorous testing. The source is, open, so there are lesser chances of any malicious code being in that. And it has stood the test of time. So it's always good to go for a library first, see if a component already exists that you want to use. If not, then go for creating your own. In fact, a good site for that would be bit.dev. So bit.dev, they have, let me see if I can open the site quickly. So they have like thousands of components, not just in React, but in even in Vue, Angular, and all. And you can probably find the right component for yourselves. In fact, there is another site that we had actually developed as part of our open source initiative called Component Lib, which is also framework agnostic. So let's say if you are looking for a button in React, so I can probably just search for a button here, and it will show me the list of all the button components that exist as React components. So definitely go for these kind of libraries rather than trying to create your own. Then the list is actually quite long when you talk about libraries. So yeah, definitely we won't be able to go through all of these, but a lot of these are something that I have used myself, or I have got a recommendation of these from a lot of my friends in the industry. So definitely take a look at this. A few of these that I can definitely suggest out is, especially if you're working on React Native, then Native Base is a very good library. Like that was probably the first library that I used when I started with React Native, and that proved very useful. Otherwise the ones which were provided as part of the basic React Native library, they were not really as good or as complete as the Native Base library was. Then there is a well-known semantic UI library which have a React flavor also, and the material kit. So as you all know, so there was a material designed by Google, and a lot of projects started in different frameworks to create components which added to those design guidelines. So in React, there is React Material Kit, as well as React MD that you can try out. Then there are certain libraries designed especially for enterprise applications like Ant design. There are certain libraries which are designed for fast rendering like shards. So and then there is also React virtualized. React virtualized purpose is that, let's say if you have a long list of items to show, you don't really try to render all of them at the same time. You only render the ones which are in the visible area of your application, thereby reducing a lot of CPU cycles and browser memory. And similarly, there are a lot of tools here. There is also Onsen UI, which is quite popular. And there is a Prime React, which is basically again from the family of Prime libraries. So there is also Prime NG that we had used for Angular project in another project, and it was quite good. Kendo React is probably one of the oldest. Like the Kendo UI libraries have been there since the jQuery time, and they have always given very good, useful libraries to work on. There is one called Rebase library, which is in fact based on styled system. So if that's something that interests you, like if you have used style components and are interested in style system, then that is something that might be interesting to you. Now, there will be a lot of design tools that you can use while you are designing your product. A lot of you might have already, used a few of these. If not, this is a good list that you can look at. So Sketch is like a very basic and good tool for even prototyping as well as designing your application. Then there is Figma, which is very famous, actually, like very popular in our industry for collaborative design specifically. In fact, even Adobe XD supports collaborative design. So if you have like multiple designers sitting at different parts of the world, especially in this time when collaborative tools have become so much more useful, you can definitely take a look at this. Then there is Framer. So Framer, the main thing that they advertise about is being fast and supporting responsive designs. And then there is Zeppelin. So Zeppelin, it kind of got quite popular when one of the Vue core committers, he actually talked about it, that that made handoff so much more easier between a designer and a developer. So it has a lot of bunch of tools for that. And so then after the design phase, the next thing is about coding. So uh, now one thing that I have really learned in this is that initially I used to use Visual Studio for my purposes. Then I jumped to WebStorm by IntelliJ IDEA. Then when everybody started using VS Code, I also jumped my ship to VS Code, just so that I can be in tune with the other developers, like, the way they use or code their application. So one thing that I really saw was that it was probably not worth jumping IDs so much because, for example, I was so much used to working with all the refactoring options in WebStorm that my productivity was like really high when I used to code in WebStorm, like all the keyboard shortcuts and all that. But when I jumped to VS Code, all the VS Code is good. It's really a good idea, but I don't think it is on par with WebStorm yet in terms of at least the refactoring options for JavaScript code. So, with VS Code, I do definitely sometimes struggle a bit of times, like, when I want to extract a bit of code, like extract method or things like that. So it does take a bit of time for me, whereas it was quite fast for me in WebStorm. So this is not really about WebStorm versus VS Code, but it was about my comfort level with a particular ID that I had set up. And then because I moved to some other ID, that kind of, slowed me down. So in fact, there are other IDs like Atom and even Sublime Text if you're used to that. So I'll say, stick to the ID that you're used to, and that can definitely improve your productivity. Unless there is like a real big reason to jump, don't jump your IDs. Now, when we talk about IDs, there are a few specialized libraries like a lot of IDs today, they support design as well as coding. Like there is a tool called BuilderX that allows you to design your entire page visually. You can drag and drop buttons and list boxes and things like that. And then it will auto-generate the code behind for you. And then you can add whatever logic you need to have for your event handlers and component initialization, lifecycle methods and all. Similarly, there is React Studio, then there is React Tide, and there is Handoff. Again, all of these tools, they have a bit of pros and cons with each other. So I will not really go for one over the other over here, although I had used BuilderX and found it good. But what I will suggest is, as a developer, it definitely makes sense if you spend a bit of time in each of these tools. They all have, a few of them are paid versions also, so they might have some trial periods. So just download these tools, try it out and see how it works for you. What are the pros and cons that you see yourself, like, because being design tools, more than any feature, what really matters is how comfortable it is for you to use. So just try it out yourself and see which one works best for you. In fact, Handoff was something that even you had actually recommended this in his video channel to use. He found it very useful to do the handoff between the designers and developers. Another tip, especially for us React developers, that it's probably time to start using TypeScript. Earlier, it wasn't really supported that well, especially if you had Redux integrated into your application. Using TypeScript was not that easy. But now it's actually kind of recommended also. So if you just add the switch -- TypeScript to your npx create React app command, then it will actually create a project for you in TypeScript. A lot of us don't know about this, so probably this will be useful. So you can probably give it a try and see how it works for you, because this can actually save a lot of your time in the design time itself, like catch a lot of compile time errors or probable pitfalls earlier in time. And also, while you're coding, this is not really a tool, but some kind of a recommendation. Like, try to use most of the JavaScript features that comes out in the later versions of ECMAScript standard. Like for example, recently these two features were added as part of your browser standard, like optional chaining, wherein if let's say my data is null or my temperature is null, I don't have to really write long statements of response.data and response.data dot temperature and like that. It becomes it makes the expression really long. So try to use this kind of shorthands. Even the null coalescing, like if let's say in this case my settings dot animation time is null, then it will take the default time. So we can achieve the same things using longer if else expressions, but it's always good to have as crisp statements as possible, because it makes the code much more readable, provided it is readable. Like don't go for smaller code size just for the sake of it if it is not a readable code. Then another piece of suggestion would be like, a lot of us, whenever we are starting off with a project, we always start with create React app, and then we keep adding onto it, right? It might be good to do some kind of an evaluation or proof of concept, or let's say if you really want to go that way, it's okay. But I will suggest that there are a lot of boilerplates available online, and a lot of these have a lot of contributors and big followers in the industry base. They have been time tested. So try to use these kind of boilerplates for your application rather than trying to make things by your own. For example, if you want to achieve server-side coding, instead of trying to do server-side coding by hand, by yourself, probably choose something like the next JS. Similarly, if you want to create a static site, try out Gatsby. So I'm sure, again, a lot of you would have probably used a few of these tools already. If not, it's probably a good time to spend some time, maybe over the weekend, spend an hour or two and see how it feels like. Then there is another boilerplate code called React Slingshot, which is like React plus Redux. And then there is React Admin, which is especially for B2B application. And if you are still interested in figuring out other projects, then there is this React Starter projects. Then there are this bunch of ID extensions that you can use. So I will definitely recommend you try out these extensions, because that makes things much easier for you. The best thing that I like is definitely Prettier and ESLint, because I don't want formatting of the code within my team to be different for everybody. So it's always good that if you have a good Prettier install for your application. Similarly, for styling, you can try out semi-standard. One thing that I really find useful is the Peacock application. That's like if you have multiple VS Code projects open, it's always difficult to figure out which project is for which, which ID is for which project. And if you can give some kind of a color indication for each of them, that really helps. And Peacock is one such ID. Then there is Git lens that can give you some kind of an indication about who changed what file at what point of time. React extension pack is good for quick shorthands. And also, there are a few things like, you can probably use some things like for changing the case of your variables. Like sometimes you want to change from kebab case to capital case. So it's always useful to use some kind of an extension for that. In fact, also try to learn a lot of the tricks which are there in your ID. For example, if I have a list of items like this, which is line 2431, I can just go for a shorthand like Control Command Shift P, and I can say sort the lines ascending. And if I do that, it just sorts my lines properly. So these kind of things, you don't really have to do it manually. There are a lot of tools available. Again, for collaborative tools, definitely nowadays we are all aware of, about Zoom, like Zoom, Teams, Slack, and all. And few of the tools like Code Sandbox has collaborative options today. There is also a tool called VS Code. Now, there are few offerings which allows us to test or see a component by itself. Like there is a Storybooks or React Cosmos or Style Guidist. I will highly recommend you take a look at this, especially Storybook, wherein you can create a good list of components for your application and test each of them individually. Now coming to debug, this is a good tweet that I saw once. Like, this is pretty much how we debug our application. We generally start with console logs, or we try out the debugger statement, or we use the browser debug tool, or sometimes we use a Chrome dev extension. And if nothing of this works, then we try to post our question in Twitter, or even ask on Stack Overflow. So it's important to use the right tool for debugging. Definitely try out Chrome debug tool. One thing that I had tried out that has worked pretty well for me is the remotejs.com. To give you an idea how it works on. So this is the site. Let's see if I just say here, start debugging. It gives me a script here. I can just copy this script, and I have created one simple hello world application of React, and I just post this script over here, and I say save. Now, if I take a look at this code, it is this one, right?
Five
Yeah.
minutes left.
Okay. So here now, let's say whatever kind of uh, like events or anything that it generates, I can actually actually have those kind of events shown on the tool on the remote side. So probably let's just see if we have enough time to demo that. Okay, so I guess we'll not really spend much time here. Um, I'll just move on to the next tools because otherwise we'll miss out on those. So please definitely try out this remote.js. And the good things about those is that, like, whenever I am trying to raise any kind of events from here, or if I want to send any kind of, logs to my application there, it can always help me debug those things remotely. Like, for example, as you see here, if I type in something like ASD, if I go here, you will see that it says that, okay, these kind of things were typed as ASD here. If I send something like alert, and if I say hi from here, then it actually shows this in alert box in my actual application. So this is very useful when you want to debug, let's say, your production application, or debug some customer issues. This is very useful. Similarly, for debugging CSS, there are a lot of browser extensions, like especially if you want to get hold of what colors are there on the page, or if you want to measure the dimensions of your applications, there is a ruler. If you want to figure out the font, there is something called as what font that will give you all the details of the font that you hovered over. Then there are simple debug tools for CSS. And there is a good CSS scan tool. Like, if you look at this, we always have been doing inspect element on browser dev tool, and then trying to see the style statements. Instead of that, a tool like get CSS scan is something very intuitive and useful to use. Then there is also React site that can give you a good component hierarchy of your application. Now, coming to testing, we'll not spend much time over here, but one thing is no test is definitely not a good way to go. Like, as a lot of times we have a tendency to not write tests, we think it's a waste of time. But in the long run, it definitely helps, and it creates a good safety net around your application. So definitely go for it. You would have already tried out Cypress, I'm sure, if you're a React developer, and also the React testing library by Kenzie Dots. This is a very good library because it tests your components from or the application from the user's point of view. So definitely try it out. There is a good tool that I use called the Ghost Lab. I'll probably give a quick demo of that. So this is the Ghost Lab tool that can help me see how my application will look on actual devices. For example, let's see if I just say add, and if I add the same localhost application which is running. So I just click on this and I say play, and now you'll see that it gives me like, I can see it on the browser, or I can get a QR code scanner. So I'm just trying to open this on my mobile. So what you will see is, let me try to do it quickly. So I just opened it on my mobile. I'm not sure if you are able to see this, but the same React application shows up on my mobile, and then I can see how the working is. So even though I'm developing my application on localhost, I can quickly try it on my mobile and see how it really looks like. Because a lot of times, just looking at the responsive view of your application in the browser, Chrome debug tool is not good enough. You want to see it in your actual mobile. So it sometimes helps.
1 minute left.
Sure. So this is, I think, pretty much of it. So also try out different tools for build, especially do some evaluation of rollup versus Webpack versus Parcel. And then there are some deploy tools like whenever somebody raises a PR, it's always good to deploy it using Netlify or so. I tried it out in our application front-end social, and that really helps. Like you don't want to deploy something into production and then see if it's working or not. So especially in open source projects, it helps. And for release, there is Octopus and even Microsoft TFS. And for support, there are a lot of tools like there is a Data Debug or LogRocket or even Splunk. Or if you have really big applications, then AppDynamics really helps. So please try out these things. And there are good places to learn coding. We'll probably skip this. One thing I'll definitely tell you is try out touch typing. That really helps if you can start typing quickly without looking at the code. That improves your productivity. And try to go for ergonomics, keyboard and things like that. Go for a wider. So these are all the physical tools now we are talking about. Like go for probably a wider monitor rather than multiple small monitors, because even if you have to move your head, that kind of takes away a bit of time. And that's it. So, and you definitely give a holistic view to your life. Like take time off, take good relaxation, take good sleep cycles and food cycles. That definitely helps to improve your productivity as a developer as well, and helps you to lead a good life. So all these tools that we talked about, they are all available in this site called frontendsocial/tools. Please have a look at those. And yeah, stay safe in this challenging times. So this is my Twitter ID if you want to keep in touch. So that's about it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. How do you feel now when you finished your conversation? What is your experience overall about it?
Yeah, so it was quite good actually. So I've been doing a couple of these before. So yeah, definitely it feels a little different from the way we do like offline conference, wherein there is some kind of a feedback
Yeah,
from the audience.
yeah.
But that there are people who are listening to you and they keep posting questions on the chat. So this is kind of the new normal, and I think it's already been about more than 6 months, so we are kind of all used to it. And this is definitely the reach is much higher with online conferences. So I am totally excited about it. So yeah, it's good.
Thank you. I like the way that you organized your presentation and all this interactive stuff, sometimes funny stuff. People appreciate that. So we still have a good rate here. Now we are going forward with our third speaker, and then we will start the Q&A session in 40 minutes from now.
Sure.
So
Yeah. So thanks everybody for having me here. I will tweet about the presentation. I'll keep it in some Google Drive and share it with you so that you can take a look at all these tools at your leisure time. Yeah.
thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
See you soon.